Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby, and I wish I could welcome you back warmly to World of Tanks today. However, this isn't going to be a video which I enjoy making. It's really hard to make this kind of a video about a game that you have enjoyed for the best part of the last 13 years. When irrelevant of how much feedback both you and your peers inside the community deliver to Wargaming, the company that make World of Tanks, but they completely ignore it and do whatever they want anyway. All I can do is be a critic of what Wargaming produce. I'm not a developer. I don't have any say in their decision making, and there have been times in the past, over my last 10 or 11 years of content creation, where frankly I've thought far too much about what Wargaming should do and then become very disappointed because they just do what they want anyway. Nevertheless, making this video is very important, both for the current player who is deciding about what these changes may mean for their ability to be competitive inside the game, and also for anyone in the future who wants to start playing World of Tanks, I guess in April onwards from 2023. And I wish this was an April Fool's joke. And what I fear will affect those two things will be coming up in update 1.20.1 of World of Tanks, which massively changes the way that the crew system works. Wargaming are taking a system that has been in the game for pretty much about 8 years and completely revolutionizing it, doubling the effect of certain perks, adding other perks into the game that are going to massively change the way that you're going to be able to play the game, and adjusting the system without making any kind of changes about what you have to play or pay to be able to progress. Effectively, what Wargaming are doing are moving the goalposts, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, Crew 2.0 is nothing new. Wargaming have been testing this for the last couple of years. Now, these crew changes in World of Tanks have been a long time coming. It started back in February 2021, over 2 years ago. Subsequently, Wargaming released a sandbox test server 6 months after that, and here we are with no real mention of the changes that they've made to Crew 2.0. It's going straight into a test server. Now, what a test server means in World of Tanks is that 90 to 99% of the content from a test server just goes into the game about 3 to 4 weeks later. So whether you like the changes or not that you are seeing, you're pretty much just going to have to put up with them because they're going to become the game that you play in under a month. So firstly, let me talk about the good things that Wargaming are doing with this crew system. Firstly, I like the fact that firefighting is now going to be a radio operator exclusive skill. Previously, this was a universal skill which you had to have on every single one of your crew members. And so by putting it as a radio operator skill, that frees up other slots on other crew members to be able to take some of the new skills. Next, Wargaming have increased the importance of certain crew members. A radio operator, who now has to have firefighting, although they kind of had to have that previously, also can take jamming, which means that your vehicle is going to be spotted for an entire second less. You can also take comms expert, which means that if you do more than your hit points in assistance in a battle, that you're going to have 2.5% increased crew skill for the remainder of the battle. And also teamwork. So if you are within 50 meters of an ally, that your crew skill is just going to be 5% better. Now, what does 5% better actually mean in World of Tanks? 5% better means that everything about your vehicle is actually roughly about 2.5% better. Your rate of fire will improve by 2.5, your accuracy, your camo, your view range, your traverse speed, your ground resistances. And so that's a pretty huge difference in the game, right? That now, if you just arbitrarily hang around with an allied tank within 50 meters, you're literally going to be 2.5% better. If, of course, you can afford to take that crew skill on your radio operator. In addition, the loader has 3 useful skills. Guerrilla, which increases your concealment when you're behind foliage by 2%, and it also reduces the penalty to your concealment when you fire by 10%, which is very nice to have, especially on certain tanks, as we're going to see later on today in the video. Also, shell tuning reduces the minimum damage and minimum penetration roll you can have by 2%. So what that means, if we take a 560 alpha damage gun, like on the AMX M454, for example, if you don't have that skill, you could roll as low as 420 alpha damage. However, with the skill, your new minimum damage will be 435. Now, it doesn't reduce the highest role that you can have inside World of Tanks. So that actually just means that your alpha damage on an AMX M454 will increase by 7.5 overall on average. So that's a 1% damage per minute increase that will be possible for every single tank. So all alpha damages in World of Tanks will effectively increase, again, if you can afford to have this skill on your loader. And also, there will be close combat, which will be a flat 2.5% rate of fire increase on your loader if you are within 50 meters of an enemy. Now, this will definitely benefit a tank like a Tortoise, a tank like the Badger, for example, or heavy tanks that want to be brawling, especially those with very good damage per minute. Again, if you can afford to take this on your loader. And are you starting to notice that if you can take these 6 new crew skills amongst the many new crew skills that Wargaming are putting into the game, you are literally going to be having the benefit of, okay, let's say you've done your hit points in assistance, that's 1.25% DPM effectively. If you're within an ally, that's going to be another 2.5%. Then if you take shell tuning, that's going to be a 1% increase to your DPM. And if you're within 50 meters of an enemy as well, that's going to be another 2.5%. Meaning that those crew skills alone will increase your vehicle's rate of fire by 7.25%. That is the equivalent of 3/4 of a gun rammer, which it has to be one of, if not the most important pieces of equipment. So effectively, if you have a good crew, or you can afford to pay for a good crew, or you can just grind to be able to get a good crew, you are going to have the equivalent of like 70% of an extra equipment slot inside World of Tanks. Now, of course, some of these crew skills, things will have to happen for them to have effect. But they happen more often than not when you are in battle. And in a game of tiny margins, a 2.5% reload means that you're most likely going to fire faster than the enemy tank if they don't have the advantage of having a higher skilled crew. So I took the good things and kind of made them bad there. So now let's talk about the bad things that will be coming from this system. Firstly, heavy tanks don't need so many skills as other classes. You know, if you've got yourself a mouse, you're going to have a commander, you've got a gunner, a driver, a radio operator, and 2 loaders. And when you've got so many different crew members, and all of the perks only need to be on one of the crew members, apart from things like Brothers in Arms and Repairs, then there's not really too much pressure on that crew. However, vehicles which only have 3 crew members, for example, the Object 780, there's a huge amount of pressure on the commander, which is now going to have an insurmountable amount of crew training required if they want to have all of the advantages that other tanks with larger amounts of crews are able to achieve. Now let me clarify, this is nothing new. This was in the game previously. Small crews had higher pressure on all of the different skills to be able to effectively get competitive. But the problem is that when Wargaming add in pretty much 3 new, in my opinion, mandatory crew skills across each of the roles, this means that for crews, like on the 780, where the commander has to be the commander, the radio operator, and the loader, they've kind of got 9 extra skills that they have to achieve if they want to be competitive compared to how they were previously. And my question to you is that, do you really feel like the heavy tanks needed a buff inside the game compared to, for example, the light tanks or maybe even the mediums? Accordingly, this is yet another patch where Wargaming are effectively giving a buff to the most competitive type of tanks inside the game, which are the heavies. Next up, I want to talk about super tanks effectively inside the game. And that is because Wargaming have taken a lot of crew skills and they've significantly increased their impact. Take a look at Safe Stowage, for example. Now it increases your ammo rack durability by 25%, whereas previously, Safe Stowage would have increased your ammo rack durability by 12%. If we take a look at a gunner skill such as Snapshot, now Snapshot increases your dispersion, or decreases your dispersion, I should say, by 15%, whereas previously Snapshot reduced the dispersion by 7.5%. And so now effectively, these crew skills have gone from becoming, should we say, optional benefits to a player with, should we say, micro advantages to now being twice as powerful as they were before, further increasing the importance of having them and further making them mandatory, at least in my opinion. Wargaming have done this with pretty much all of the crew skills that are available. Deadeye, for example, now increases the chance of critically damaging enemy modules or injuring crew members by 10%, whereas previously it was only 3%. And that was only for armor-piercing APCR or heat shells. Whereas if Wargaming is saying effective with all shell types, does that now mean that artillery and high explosive shells are going to have a significantly higher chance of being able to crit you? I don't really have time to be talking about each and every single one of these crew skills. All you really need to know is that having them is now going to be a huge advantage, whereas for quite a few of them previously, they were kind of just a little luxury that you could have on your vehicle. One of the really scary things about this patch as well is the fact that in addition to Deadeye effectively being tripled in its effectiveness, also Eagle Eye now does half of the effect that Deadeye does, increasing the chance of you damaging enemy crew members and modules by 5%. This now means that the chance of you critting your opponents is going from 3% to 15%. But that's not all. And that is because with the new changes that additionally the major qualification level now affects almost all perks. So the higher it is, the stronger the perk effect is. So what this means is that if you use a premium consumable, which will cost you 10 to 20,000 credits per battle, and also if like me, you love to have vents, maybe bond vents to increase your crew skill by 8.5%, then that means that all of these now overpowered crew skills are going to be even more impactful. So for example, look what Snapshot will do with a premium consumable and bond vents. It's going to be 20.33% reduced dispersion. That is the equivalent of having vertical stabilizers on a tank. This will also impact the amount of crits that you deal in World of Tanks. Look, with again the premium consumable and vent, Eagle Eye and Deadeye increase the crit chance to 19.72% higher. And I just realized that if you have the luxury of having vent purges, that this will further increase your crew skill. And so then your crit chance will actually go up to 20.2% higher, purely because I took the vent directives. This is a problem of systems and scaling, and when you have 20 different sources inside World of Tanks of being able to increase one of the aspects, so for example damage per minute, they stack on top of each other, and you can achieve outrageous results. And just to show you what kind of results we can have, why don't we create the highest possible damage per minute in World of Tanks? So a massive thank you to everyone who joined me on the test server to be able to recreate some shenanigans. So firstly, what I'm going to do is take the highest damage per minute tank in the game, which is the Badger, and then I'm going to spot my opponents, in the case of about 15 German heavy tanks here who have over 50,000 hit points. And I'm going to have two awesome Jagdpanzer E100s on my team who are going to shoot a German heavy tank to be able to get me the benefit of Comms Expert, which is going to increase my major qualification by 2.5% if I exceed my vehicle's hit points in assistance. So one more shot from the Jagdpanzer E100, please, on the mouse. There we go. And I've managed to get myself, I'll move for a second, 2,267 assistance. And what this means is that now inside the game, if I mouse over it, you'll see that Comms Expert is active. Next, what I'm going to need to do is get a very friendly mouse to have a little bit of fun with my Badger. But yeah, not too much fun if you know what I mean. I need him to get my hit points down to below 10% of my original hit points, which will mean that now I also have Adrenaline Rush active, which will increase my rate of fire by 10%. But remember, now that perk is going to be cumulative with all of the other major qualification skills. In addition to this, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to summon in a very friendly bard. And here we can see Abstruse Rib, who is now within 50 meters of me. And then what that means is that I am going to have teamwork because I'm within 50 meters of an ally. And remember, what teamwork does is it increases my major qualification by an additional 5%. And also remember, because I'm within 50 meters of the enemy tanks, I'm also going to have close combat, which is going to increase my rate of fire by an additional 2.5%. So ladies and gents, boys and girls, I give you the highest possible damage per minute in World of Tanks. This is a 480 alpha damage tank, and I won't speed up the replay. You're just going to have to watch it here. And remember, I've also taken the ability that increases the bottom end of my damage rolls by 2% as well, which means that overall my damage per minute is going to be higher. These are the most healthy tanks possible in World of Tanks. And now the Badger is making them look as if they're tier 6s and as if I have an auto reloader in this kind of a situation. Now, it's rather unusual to have the opportunity of a great German wall to do some testing as to where is the best place to shoot a mouse. And so, with the advantage of Eagle Eye and this incredible rate of fire, I found where the fuel tanks were on the mouse. And we can see that they're right here. And what is absolutely outrageous about this is look how many crits we get from all of these new crew skills. We're literally setting the mouse on fire with pretty much every other shot. As soon as we know where the fuel tanks are on the vehicle, if we hit them, they are just burn, baby, burn. And this is taking some outrageous damage per minute and effectively making it even more crazy now. And this is just going to be what's a reality in the next game. Super players with super crews will make super tanks, and they're going to crit you super often with crazy rates of fire. And is this just what's meant to happen inside World of Tanks? We're burning these vehicles as if it is nothing. It's every other shot. The first shot crits the fuel tank. The second vehicle is damaging the fuel tank to red, pretty much. And then the mouse is going to be toasty. It's fire after fire after fire. And I was starting to get a little bit worried because, you know, I didn't realize how long it was going to take to be able to get through 50,000 hit points of mouse. And even with the outrageous amounts of fires that we're going to be getting on all of these vehicles, we are unfortunately still not going to have enough ammunition. And it's insane that we are doing critical damage and setting the vehicles on fire with every other shot. Absolutely mad stuff, boys and girls. This just isn't World of Tanks. It isn't World of Tanks as we know it. But unfortunately, it's what the game is going to be in pretty much 4 weeks. And while unfortunately it doesn't show in the replay what the new highest possible damage per minute is, it is going to be, in the upcoming update, over 6,000 with a Badger with all of the bells and whistles. Next, I wanted to run another experiment of one of Wargaming's brand new skills. It's called Gorilla. And Gorilla increases the concealment of a vehicle when it's behind vegetation by 2%, and it also decreases the penalty to vehicle concealment after a shot by 10%. Now, as you all know, a vehicle like the E25 has broken camo rating after it fires inside World of Tanks. This is a relic of back when tank destroyers had a class-based skill where they lost less concealment after firing than any other class. When Wargaming realized this was bad for the game, they nerfed all tank destroyers in the game to lose the same amount of concealment as all of the other classes because all of the tank destroyers were firing, not getting spotted, and people were thinking it was a trash meta and they didn't want to play. However, of course, when Wargaming nerfed all of the tank destroyers, they couldn't touch the premium tanks like the E25, right? So Wargaming, because of their inability to nerf broken tanks, have now got a serious problem on their hands. Because when they introduce new mechanics into the game, like Gorilla, they have broken vehicles that they refuse to nerf that can now take advantage of these crew skills. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I give you an E25 firing inside a bush, not behind a bush, against a Manticore. Now, just to clarify, the Manticore is one of the best scout tanks in the game. And the player that we're going to be getting spotted by, who's called Splunge Tanker, they haven't set their vehicle up incorrectly. They have 521 meters view range. So let's see how close they have to get to us when we're firing before a vehicle with 521 meters view range will spot an E25. And let me clarify, this is not me sitting behind a bush, 10 meters behind a bush, firing, because of course, if I'm sitting behind the bush and I fire, then I'm not going to be breaking the bush's concealment. What this is going to show is an E25 sitting inside the bush. How close does the Manticore have to get before it sees me? And what is that? That is 265 meters, ladies and gents, boys and girls. That's over 500 meters view range. Cannot see an E25 when it's firing inside a bush, not behind a bush, until 265 meters. Okay, so how are all of the tier 5 to tier 9 tanks that usually have roughly about 400 to at most 450 meters view range going to deal with an E25 when it has this new broken skill that Wargaming is implementing into the game? Well, why don't I show you? Here's It's Rogers playing in their TOG, and they had a very normal amount of view range, 391 meters view range. That is very normal for a free-to-play player. And It's Rogers doesn't spot me until 198 meters, ladies and gents, boys and girls. That is just absolutely ridiculous stuff. Wargaming, how can you think that this is a good thing to go into the game when you have your new crew skills, which are frankly untested with certain broken vehicles? And I can tell you for sure that when the community of gamers figures out the kind of things to take on these broken tanks, that they are going to create more situations like this. And you will see a large amount of E25s coming back onto the battlefield, sitting in positions, firing at you, and you have no hope of spotting them. I mean, for goodness sake, if a tier 10 light tank that this E25 can't even meet with 517 meters view range can't see an E25 when it's firing until 274, how is anyone else going to compete with these broken tanks and broken crew skills, Wargaming? Next, I want to highlight what playing World of Tanks without these crew skills will feel like. For the players without, you know, the free-to-play players without the 10 skill crews that can't afford to take every single one of these skills. Wargaming are massively buffing 4 different skills to now providing a huge passive effect to the protection of your vehicle. So for example, preventative maintenance. Previously, this was a perk that reduced the chance for you to be set on fire by 25% only for engines. However, in the next update, it will provide a 30% chance for reducing your fire due to engine damage, but it will also reduce the critical chance of damage to your fuel tanks by 15%. So all of those mouse tanks that I was ripping apart with the new outrageous damage per minute that's possible on the Badger, maybe if they'd taken preventative maintenance, they could have reduced that a little bit. But my question to you is, should such an important crew skill, one of 9 different crew skills that you really want to have on your driver, be such a mandatory thing to protect you from players who are going to be having all of the crew skills and all of the advantages, who are going to destroy your ammo rack, who are going to burn your fuel tanks, who are going to roast your engine and just take you out the game in record time? In addition to this, as I mentioned earlier, Wargaming are buffing the effect of safe stowage from 12.5% up to 25%. Also, Jack of all trades, a commander skill, is now going to reduce the chance of your commander being knocked out by 30%. And Call for Vengeance, a radio operator skill, is going to reduce the chance of your radio operator getting knocked out by 30%. Can anyone else see what Wargaming is planning here? They're massively increasing the chance for pay-to-win players or very, very, very experienced players with huge crews to be able to crit all of the casual players who aren't able to take the crew skills to reduce the chance of their radio operator getting knocked out, to reduce the chance of their commander getting knocked out, to protect their fuel tanks, to protect their engine, to protect their ammo rack. These are all things that are effectively going to become mandatory inside World of Tanks. It's like an arms race. And unfortunately, when the solution for the arms race is either to play an insanely large amount or to get your wallet out and throw it at Wargaming, those are your only real two options if you want to remain competitive inside the game. The next thing that I want to come on to is the fact that the game is about to get even faster. And that is because Wargaming are putting in possibly one of the most outrageous and mandatory skills that they could possibly have inside World of Tanks. It's called Engineer. Engineer increases your engine power by a whopping 5%. And also it means that your vehicle can go 1 kilometer an hour faster forwards and 1 kilometer an hour faster backwards. Now there's multiple problems about this Engineer perk. Firstly, yes, it will work with EBRs. EBRs were considered to be a class that was so fast that Wargaming doesn't allow them to use turbos. However, EBRs are going to be able to use the Engineer perk, now meaning that the new EBR top speed limit is going to be 94.39%. That is before, of course, you can increase your crew skill in the battle by doing spotting or sitting near your allies. And so while vehicles that were considered so fast that they weren't allowed to use turbos are going to be able to benefit from this new crew skill, it's also some of the slower tanks in the game. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Mouse's new top speed limit, again before you buff the crew skills inside the battle by doing things, is going to be 29.39 kilometers an hour. This is a vehicle for pretty much the first 8 years of its life was limited to 20. Then the turbo went in. Then the field mods went in. Then engineering went in. How much further is the game going to get faster? This crew skill will also massively impact vehicles that have siege modes like the STRV-103B, as I do expect that engineering is going to be providing a flat increase to the top speed and the reverse speed inside these siege modes. A regular STRV can go 10 kilometers an hour faster forwards, 10 kilometers an hour faster backwards. If you slap a Bond turbo on it, now you're up to 16 kilometers an hour faster forwards and 14 backwards. If you have engineering on the vehicle, you're pretty much going to be 17.5 kilometers an hour faster forwards and 15.5 faster backwards. This huge disparity amongst the free-to-play players and the pay-to-win players is just increasing at a ridiculous rate. And especially on tanks that already feel like they're pretty pressured with regards to crew skills. What are you going to sacrifice, or what are you going to retrain to be able to get the new flavor of the month perks? Next, Wargaming have changed the way that intuition works inside the game, yet they won't give us a free reset on our loaders. Previously, in the very first version of the new crew system, intuition was a perk, and it randomly sometimes instantly allowed you to switch shells. Wargaming made huge improvements to the way that intuition worked, meaning that instead of a roll the dice random feature, they changed it so it would shave off up to 80% of the reload time, allowing you to reload in about 1 to 4 seconds, depending on what kind of a tank you were playing. However, when they made that change, they made intuition a skill which averaged amongst your loaders, meaning that you had to have intuition on all of the loaders of your vehicles. However, in the new version of World of Tanks, intuition is a perk, which means that if I, for example, reset one of my loaders here, we're going to see that intuition on my other loader is still reducing the shell speed switching by 82.9%. And Wargaming are not resetting intuition as a skill on loaders, which means that you are going to have to pay with either gold or credits at a sacrifice of crew experience to be able to reset one of your loaders, at least one of your loaders, on the tanks that have multiple loaders to be able to get intuition off as a wasted slot at a time when crew skills are going to become more important. And it's not only tanks like the Mouse that this is going to happen on. Also, vehicles that have very pressured crew loadouts, like the Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, actually has 2 loaders. The gunner is the loader, and the commander is a loader. And of course, I love to have intuition because this thing's got great HE rounds. Wargaming, give me a free reset for intuition on every single vehicle in the game so I can reassign it, or so that I can assign it to only one of my loaders. It's crazy that you think that you can change the way that a skill works and not compensate us. Effectively just telling the player base, oh, well, you're going to just have to pay us for a change that we've made that you didn't really ask for. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that this is a good improvement. I think that intuition should be a perk because with there being so much pressure on the system now, I don't think it should have to be on multiple loaders. So I think it's a good change from Wargaming, but they're being very ignorant by not giving us a free reset for all of the loaders inside the game that do have intuition. And considering that I know for a fact that they gave us a free reset on firefighting on all of the different crew members, if you're taking away if you can do it, Wargaming, also do it for intuition, please. So now I've talked about the good, I've talked about the bad, now I'm going to talk about the downright deplorable. Things that Wargaming should not be allowed to get away with from the community, and we should hold them accountable. Firstly, Wargaming, when you told us about Crew 2.0, you said that you wanted to increase the variety or allow us to be able to specialize our vehicles in a certain way. The problem is, Wargaming, is these aren't choices. These are literally just unlocks that make your tanks flat out better. And at a time when also all of the skills, pretty much all of them, have been improved, doubled in their effect, tripled in their effect, have whole new abilities that either protect our tanks or allow us to destroy the enemy in quick fashion. These skills, with them being buffed, is no longer a case of micro advantages that reward players for playing for a very long time. These are frankly huge advantages with so many different skills being introduced that have now become the #1 pick. For example, shell tuning, the one that just increases your alpha damage effectively by 1% by improving the lower end by 2%. That is now the #1 pick for loaders. Engineer also will become the #1 pick for all drivers. I have no idea how you will be able to play this game without that 5% engine power and the 1 kilometer an hour increase to your top speed limit in your reverse. It's outrageous. It's not like a field mod where you take one thing to sacrifice other. It's literally just a huge improvement to your tank. And that's why, once again, I'm going to say it, these are effectively mandatory advantages that you are going to have to play or pay to be able to get. Next, I want to highlight one of the most disgusting things about this crew system. And that is that while Wargaming think that, oh, they've probably done real good because now all of these different crew members have got so many different useful skills that you can be able to get, they haven't thought about changing the experience system to be able to get them. Previously, to have a maxed out crew inside World of Tanks, you needed to have roughly about 7 skills. So how long does it take to get 7 skills inside World of Tanks? Well, I've done the hard work so you don't have to. Each skill requires twice as much as the previous to be able to advance the way through it. That's why most people kind of cap out at around the 4 or 5 skill mark, and only the real sweaty nerds go to 6, 7, or even 8 skills inside World of Tanks. The third column that we have here is the cumulative experience that you will have to grind to be able to achieve each of the skills. So for example, if you want to get a 4 skill crew, that is going to be 3,150,000 experience grinded on that crew member to finish 4 skills completely. Now, when you say a number like 3 million experience, what does that actually mean to you? It might not really mean too much. Well, roughly, players, without playing premium tanks, get about 1,000 experience per game. So you can divide that cumulative total by 1,000 to get the number of games that you actually have to play to finish 4 skills in World of Tanks. And it might alarm you to realize that unless you've got a 0 skill crew, it will take you 3,100 battles to be able to finish your 4th skill in World of Tanks. And in the previous system, that would mean that you didn't have access to 2 or 3 skills, some of which that weren't that useful. However, in the new system, all crew members have 9 skills, of which at least 6 or 7 of them, at least in my opinion, are mandatory. How long will it take you to finish 9 skills in World of Tanks? Well, we're talking about 107 million experience to finish your 9th skill in World of Tanks. That is with a regular crew, not a Brothers in Arms crew. However, if you do have a 0 skill Brothers in Arms crew, I guess it's only going to cost you 53 million for experience to be able to grind through the crew. Now, how many games of World of Tanks is that? Well, ladies and gents, boys and girls, if you want to finish your 9th skill without a Brothers in Arms crew, it is 107,000 battles of World of Tanks. Let me just clarify. This has been my full-time job for the last nearly 11 years. I don't have 107,000 battles inside World of Tanks, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Can you honestly believe that if this had been my full-time job, just grinding a single crew, I would only just now be completing my 9th skill on a single one of my tanks. Now, even if you have a Brothers in Arms crew, it's still going to be 53,000 battles. And if you have the legendary Santa Claus Commander with 2 0 skills, that's still 26,000 battles. Now, maybe some of you are thinking, oh, I get more than 1,000 experience per game. Well then, maybe you're playing with a premium account, you're using a 200% extra booster as well. Let's say that you're getting 4,000 experience in every single one of your games instead of 1,000. Well, I'd hate to break it to you, but it's still going to take you 26,000 games with a regular crew to get that 9th skill. Or, if you want to get it with a 0 skill Brothers in Arms crew, it's still 13,000 games of World of Tanks while you're probably playing in a premium tank and you're using a 200 or a 300% extra crew training booster to be able to reach Wargaming's new end game. The bottom line is that sweaty nerds with no life and deep pockets will now become even more significantly better than you. And not because they're good at World of Tanks, not because they know the game mechanics, just purely because they have the time or they have the history inside World of Tanks or the money to have a better crew than you do. Wargaming, why do you think in 2023 that you need to increase the disparity between the paying customers and the free-to-play players, especially when you are leaving your more central and eastern markets? And you are now depending on a Western market that, don't tell Westerners that you're going to change the rules, that you're going to make the game unfair. There's a reason why your game has never been ultra successful with the West, and that is because of the pay to win inside World of Tanks. And the fact that you are ramping it up in 2023 is frankly disgraceful. Next, I want to talk about how small crews with multiple roles just became useless. You know, with this new system, with Wargaming putting in lots of crew skills that you frankly have to have on all your vehicles, they don't seem to have thought about tanks where certain crew members perform multiple roles. Ladies and gentlemen, I will present you with the Manticore problem. The Manticore has a commander where the commander is not just the commander, they're also the radio operator, and they are also the gunner as well. Accordingly, there are 21 different skills on the Manticore, of which the vast majority of them are now, in my opinion, very, very desirable, if not mandatory, to be competitive inside the game. So I've broken this down for you. So for the commander skills that I would want to have on the Manticore are Recon, Eagle Eye, and Practicality. The radio operator skills I would want to have are Situational Awareness, Jamming, Comms Expert, Teamwork, and the gunner skills I would want are Designated Target, Concentration, Deadeye, and Snapshot. However, I still have to take universal skills of Brothers in Arms, Camo, and Repairs. So I feel like it's okay to skip Mentor, Sound Detection, Jack of all trades, Firefighting, Call for Vengeance, Armorer, and Quick Aiming. So how many crew skills do I need that I feel are just super competitive, if not mandatory, on this tank? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14... Oh dear, ladies and gents. To be able to achieve that, I would have to grind 3.4 billion experience. Now, when Wargaming are doing an event, when you can spend free experience to be able to boost up a crew member, and they do a 10-to-1 ratio instead of a 5-to-1 ratio, that would require me to get 344 million free experience to be able to achieve a 14 skill commander. Now, when Wargaming are running events and they allow you to convert free experience at a 40-to-1 ratio with your gold, that would require me to have 8,603,696 gold to be able to convert the free experience to boost my commander to be able to get 14 skills. And yeah, ladies and gents, boys and girls, currently the cheapest gold you can get in World of Tanks is 55,000 gold at 154 pounds a pop, which means that it's the price of pretty much a new car to be able to get a Manticore commander to 14 skills. 24,217 pounds worth of gold converted at the best possible rate to be able to achieve this. And remember, these are only the crew skills that I deem to be essential on the Manticore, ignoring all of the other vehicles, which were not vehicles, all of the other crew skills that would clearly provide me with advantages. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, you know, you can buy crew books instead. Well, to be able to buy the crew books to get 3.4 billion experience, that would cost you 27 billion credits to be able to get that amount. And let's say that you can grind 1 million credits every single hour when you're running a crew booster. Well, that means that you're going to have to grind for 27,500 hours to be able to get that amount of credits to be able to boost into your Manticore. That's 1,147 days without going to your sleep, which is 3.14 years of your life. And remember, that is as if you didn't sleep. So realistically, that's 6 years if you play World of Tanks for 12 hours a day, grinding credits with infinite amount of credit boosters to be able to achieve what I would consider to be a competitive crew on the Manticore. And the silliness doesn't really end here. There are also other vehicles in the game, like the ELC AMX, where the commander also performs 3 other roles on the tank. That's right, my commander Mochizuki will have to not only be the commander, she'll have to be the gunner, the radio operator, and the loader on this tank, meaning that I have to scroll down a very large amount to show you all of the perks that I will be missing on my ELC AMX. In fact, the ELC AMX commander can have 27 skills inside World of Tanks. And to show you how preposterous it would be to be able to achieve this, I've broken it down in the same way. This is 28 trillion experience, which if you converted 10 free experience to be able to get it, that would be 2.8 trillion. Now, if you wanted to get that free experience, you would need to divide it by 40 gold, because you get 40 free experience for every gold you spend. Oh, that's a lot cheaper. Now it's only 70 billion gold to be able to get my commander to have every single perk inside the game. All right, so how much does 70 billion gold cost in World of Tanks? Well, it's 55,000 gold per 154 pounds, which would mean that I would need 198,398,251 pounds and 56 pence to be able to afford to get every single skill on my commander on the ELC. Now, if you don't have 198 million pounds to be able to spend on a free-to-play game to have every single one of the advantages, or maybe you can do credits instead. Well, you're going to need 225 trillion credits. I've worked that out as taking 225 million hours to be able to achieve, which is 9,398. Sorry, no, it's not. It's 9,398,104 days of playing World of Tanks. You're going to need quite a few coffees to be able to get through that. And ladies and gents, boys and girls, to break it down for you there, if you wanted to grind the credits to be able to max out the ELC AMX commander, you would have to start playing 25,000 years ago and you would just be finishing it now. That is pretty much twice the time that modern humans have existed. So congratulations to you, Wargaming, on really accounting for this in World of Tanks. I'm sure that you're going to have multiple people spending 198 million pounds to be able to get the crew of their dreams. The fact of the matter is that Wargaming are ignorantly bolting on ill-conceived changes to an archaic system without the consideration of all of the huge glaring issues that it only really took me a few days to be able to figure out. Wargaming, you are the developers. You are meant to be able to figure this stuff out, not some idiot middle-aged man in his pajamas playing your video game on the internet. And I think there's just only so far that I can go to ply this off as ignorance. Maybe Wargaming just haven't thought about it. Maybe they didn't know. No, I've been telling them for years that this is what's going to happen inside the crew system, and yet like a bull in a china shop, not giving a monkeys about what's going to happen, they just keep pushing through with it anyway. Now I really want to come on to my main point about this, and that is, this is not just a clickbaity title. I think the Wargaming are killing the future of World of Tanks. And the reason why I think that is because how are future World of Tanks players, you know, the players who are going to start playing in 2023 because their uncle plays it or their wife wants them to start playing it with them, how are they ever meant to catch up? Wargaming, when you create a system that requires so long to be able to get through, and then you make no changes to the amount of experience that it requires to be able to grind through this system while throwing in mandatory crew skills to be able to get, if the sweaty nerds who have been playing for 10 years don't have those advantages yet, how in hell's name do you expect the new players to be able to achieve decent crews on up to 700 different tanks inside the game? It's an absolute impracticality. And it goes so far as that how could I ever recommend somebody to start playing World of Tanks in 2023 when I know that I'm just going to be running around the battlefield like a super tank because I've been playing since the beginning and because I've been buying a premium account and because I'm going to get the World of Tanks Plus because I have 100 different premium tanks that I play constantly as this is my job, so I can have all of these 5, 6, 7 skill crews, and I'm just going to be shafting them again and again, laughing at them while they don't even have repairs on their tank yet, while I am roasting them with my increased critical strike chance, or the fact that my camera rating is meaning they're not even going to be able to spot me. How much further does this game have to go with regards to the pay to win until it effectively just becomes not a competitive game, it's not worth playing, and frankly, it is just a pay to win game, which up until this point, I really only feel like the pay to win in World of Tanks has been about 10%. But with these massive changes going into the game, it's just another layer on Wargaming's pay to win cake. The next point that I want to bring up is that Wargaming have effectively further complicated an already confusing system, as well as increasing that pay to win in World of Tanks. One of their whole purposes of Crew 2.0 was to simplify the system. But when now I have to scroll down through a ridiculous number of percentages telling me that I'm getting 3% increased dispersion on my hull traverse, but I'm getting minus 2.4% on my during my movement. Oh, I've got a 19% chance of being able to increase my crit chance against my opponents because I've taken those 2 crew skills, and an 81% on my intuition perk. How are new players ever meant to decide which ones of these crew skills they're ever going to take? I mean, who am I even kidding? They're never going to be able to take them anyway because they're so far behind, they're never going to catch up. So all I'm really going to be doing is making guides for all of the pay-to-win sweaty nerds and all of the people who've been playing this game since the beginning on how to basically farm all of the puppies the best they can. It just depresses me when I think about it like that. But now, I want to go on to possibly the most stupid thing that Wargaming are doing. And that is that last but not least, upon logging into the game, you will instantly receive 12 retraining orders, allowing you to reset perks for free. Oh, Wargaming, that's so generous of you. I have 700 different tanks inside this game. Of those 700 different tanks, I have at least 4 crew members on them. And considering how much you are effing up the entire system of World of Tanks, I need 2,800 free resets. Now let me clarify for a second here. I don't think it would be a good idea if Wargaming was to reset all of the crew skills inside the game, because it would be such a hassle to log in and have to assign all of the crew skills before you play a tank. That doesn't sound like fun. But if I had the patience to, I would like to reset like 1 tank a day, 2 tanks a day, you know, maybe 5 tanks a day. I could bother to like sit here and click for 5 minutes to be able to do all of my crews. I could manage that. But honestly, Wargaming, why would you even give us 12 retraining orders? It's almost insulting. It's like you are trying to get away with giving us the least possible anything to get through this horrible system that you are implementing that I seriously think will jeopardize, if not kill, the future marketability of your game to new players. Honestly, community, isn't this just insulting? 12 retraining orders to reset our crews. I have 12 different loaders on my double loader tanks that I'm going to have to take intuition off because Wargaming have just changed the way that intuition works. Let alone the fact that I probably have, about 700 different drivers that I'm going to have to reset because you have to have engineer or you're not going to be competitive inside the game anymore. Out of everything that Wargaming have done, this is possibly the most concerning for me because it just shows a complete lack of regard for what is necessary in this situation. How could anyone have thought that 12 retraining orders was a good idea? How did you get to that number, Wargaming? Why don't you give us 4 retraining orders for every single tank that we have inside our garage? Wargaming, you should be begging us to accept this terrible change to the game. You should be giving us a full steak dinner and giving us a massage and giving us free premium time, free premium tanks, free all of this stuff so that we don't go through this with a massive absolute crap storm that frankly this patch is looking like it will be. And the fact that you would even write, last but not least, you can get these perks reset for free, instantly get them. It's just madness. So, what can Wargaming do to fix this right now? Firstly, Wargaming, just stop it. Stop it right now. This is effectively going to be the next Rubicon inside the game. Cancel the crew changes right now. Go back and develop your game. Improve your systems before releasing the biggest single change in World of Tanks history and frankly breaking a 12-year-old game. When you go back and you develop this and you change the systems, what you are going to have to do is rescale all of the crew experience inside the game. One of the easiest possible fixes is to take what was the previous end game of, let's say, 7 skills, for which you needed 26 million free experience, and change it so that now, to be able to get 9 skills, you still need 26 million experience. So what I would recommend, effectively, is to divide the amount of experience that it requires for you to be able to get skills by 4. I.e., you get your first skill after 52,000, your second skill after 157,000, and what this will allow you to do is to get a 7 skill crew in the time that it took you to get a 5 skill crew in the current system, and it will allow you to get a 9 skill crew in the time that it took you to get a 7 skill crew in the current system. If you were to make this change, it wouldn't screw over your old customers because frankly, nobody's really got those 9 skill crews anyway. And you wouldn't screw over your future customers either. You would give them a 4 times experience help to get on the ladder quickly and get competitive so they don't get farmed by sweaty nerds who have all of the time in the world to play the same bloody tank again and again and again. I honestly think that this would pretty much solve most of the problems that you have, apart from the fact that you have crew that have to perform multiple roles on the tank. However, let's say Wargaming, you think this is unacceptable. What would I recommend? Firstly, reset intuition on every single loader in the game so that we can prevent copies. Easy change, massive quality of life improvement. Next, this is mandatory from you, Wargaming. You will give us free resets until the end of 2023 as a minimum. Change the way the game works, make it so it doesn't cost us 200 gold, lose that gold as a gesture of goodwill towards the player base. That will give us the next 9 months to be able to reset all of our crews for free without the pain of having to do them all at once or the pain of having to log in and have to assign all of them immediately because you had to reset them for us. Do not insult your players with 12 retraining orders. Do the right thing, lose a little bit of gold. it doesn't cost you any money anyway. We've already paid for that gold in the first place, and give us free resets for the rest of 2023. Next, one option would be that you allow each crew member to select its role skills depending on how many overall skills it has. So for example, let's say you have a commander that has 6 skills. Well, if they have 2 roles, then they can pick 6 skills for each of the 2 roles that are available. And in the case of the Manticore, for example, they get to pick 6 skills for each of the 3 roles that they have available. This would mean that the disparity between tanks that have 6 skill crews like the Mouse and tanks that have 2 skill crews like the Manticore would be massively reduced. Other quality of life enhancements that you could make very, very quickly and with very little development time at all to fix this absolute nightmare that you're about to throw on the World of Tanks population is you could reduce the pressure on the crew. And you could do this in the same way that you did with firefighting, i.e. changing firefighting so it is a radio operator exclusive. You could change Brothers in Arms so it is only necessary to have on the commander. Next, you could very easily make repairs a driver only skill as well. And also, while you're at it, why not make concealment a gunner only skill? And while this is going to have a problem of not helping crews that have multiple roles assigned to single crew members, this would seriously help a system where frankly there's no opportunity to ever achieve 9 skills with the way that it is, yet we want to have them. So with all of this said and done, and I hate making these kind of videos, I hate wasting all of my brain power doing development time that I am not paid for. I'm going to come to my conclusion, and that is that if Wargaming push through these changes and they don't do anything to adjust the system for new players, I can no longer in good faith recommend that you start playing World of Tanks if your desire is to be competitive. It's too late to join in and to catch up with these archaic systems and sweaty nerds like me who have been playing this game for over a decade. And frankly, Wargaming are demonstrating a desire to monetize their title above and beyond an acceptable level with no consideration for their community or the longevity of their game. They are jeopardizing the future marketability of their title. So unless they don't see a future in World of Tanks and they want to cash in as much money as they possibly can now, which I genuinely don't believe is the case, Wargaming are about to kill the future of World of Tanks. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for this video. I really look forward to seeing all of your comments down below. If you thought this video was good, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And make sure you do let me know in the comments whether you think that, am I being unreasonable here? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you like the look of this system? Do you think that it's acceptable to have to grind this much to now be competitive inside World of Tanks? Or do you not really care about any of this? And also, I'd like to go further and let you know about how you can get your voice through to Wargaming, not just by writing a comment in the comments down below on this video. I will link through in the description to Wargaming's official common test feedback form where you can let them know exactly what you think about the changes. And World of Tanks community, I would thoroughly recommend you do so, because if you don't, this is going to be a reality for you and all of the future World of Tanks players very, very soon.